morning to you all, and welcome to this conference on violence in East Africa and the Horn, religions, contributions to conflict and peace building. I'm Father Innocent Maganya, the director of the Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of Tangaza University College. This conference is co-organized by the Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies and the Institute for Social Transformation. So we are honored to welcome you to the third Tangaza Annual Conference on Sustainable Peace and Security in Africa, on violence in East Africa and the Horn, religions, contribution to conflict and peace building. By these two institutes, and Agiamondo and Civil Peace Service, Germany. We as Tangaza are pleased to see more and more interdisciplinary partnership within Tangaza through this conference or the webinar series on unpacking trauma, transitional justice and trauma healing in Eastern Africa and the Horn. Due to the omnipresence of religion in society, religious actors have a unique level of access and influence in matters of social development, peace building, and mediation. Contrary to this role as bridge builders for peace, religions also often contribute or fuel conflicts. Highlighting this ambivalent role of religions as bridge builders and sometimes roadblocks is the core issue of this international and interdisciplinary TACSPA Conference. The aim of this TACSPA Conference should also widen the transformative approach to religion, peace, and security in Africa, and connect practical peace-building efforts that are taking place across the region with the international academic discourse. Therefore, we'll hear diverse perspectives from religious leaders, scholars, security experts, and grassroots leaders, and mobilizers in peace building from Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya. They will share their experiences and involvement in contributing to lasting peace and security amongst and within various communities, religions, and ethnic groups. As Tangaza would like to congratulate the organizers of the conference. We also appreciate all the contributors and speakers. It is a timely conference given the current situation in the Horn of Africa and Central Africa. Tangaza University College stands in solidarity with the people of Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and indeed, we pray for peace in Africa. So I'd like to wish you a fruitful debate during these days of the TACSPA Conference. And I would like to officially open this conference with a word of prayer and taking the prayer for peace, the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, as we pray for peace in the Horn of Africa and beyond. So let us pray. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord. May God bless these 2 days of conference on violence and in East Africa and the Horn, religion's contribution to conflict and peace.
So thank you very much for this introduction. So I would like to give the word to Rita Matsoki, who was also together with IRDIS and IST, one of the co-organizers of these TACSPA conferences. So the word is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Distinguished guests, professors, and fellow students, all protocols observed. We started planning this conference. The Eastern Horn Africa region looked very different. We were experiencing the hope and euphoria of the Ethiopia-Eritrea peace process and the ongoing political transitions and hopefully democratization of South Sudan and Sudan. Though we were hopeful, we were also aware that our region's peace and transition processes had their own particular and distinctive hurdles and grassroots dynamics. At the time, we could not have imagined the circumstances that we are now facing in the region, with civil war in Ethiopia, the destruction of all that contributes to a dignified life, health, education, livelihoods is staggering. It is sufficient to say that there are approximately 63,100 refugees, and 80% of the health facilities in Tigray are destroyed. There are 864,000 people affected by conflict-related sexual violence, primarily women and girls, although there are also men. These people need access to gender-based violence risk mitigation, prevention, and response services that are simply not available. In recent months, the conflict has extended to Amhara and Afar region. Therefore, the humanitarian situation in those regions is deteriorating. Again, the numbers are staggering, and each number represents the life of a human being. Diplomatic efforts are ongoing to avoid a possible battle for the capital city of Addis Ababa. I pray for a miracle. In Somalia, we witness the election crisis, and then we're also witnessing the Somalia-Kenya maritime border tensions. In Kenya, we are preparing for election. So preparations and campaigns for the 2022 elections have already started. The 2007 post-election violence, which caused the death and displacement of many Kenyans, continues to cast a long shadow over the election process. The other issues, not exhaustive list, are the ongoing challenges of the BBI, the continuing problem of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the failure of the government to appoint the remaining 6 judges of the appellate court, and the appointment, and at last but not least, in Sudan. In the 25th of October, military coup in Sudan has brought the people of Sudan to the streets in protest. Despite a total internet and mobile connection blackout, the Sudanese people are protesting. Unfortunately, the Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Response Forces have responded with deadly violence, resulting in the death of many protesters. The conflict and processes that I have quickly hinted at and that our speakers will discuss are not primarily religiously motivated. However, religions do have a conflict potential through the instrumentalization of identities. They also have a potential for peace by upholding the dignity of human beings and their communities and working for the 4 pillars of peace, which are truth, justice, freedom, love. Through this conference, I hope and pray that we can all learn from each other and become the instruments of peace that St. Francis envisioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita. So for giving a brief overview and framing the situation in the region. So last but not least, I would like to give the word to Sheikh Abu Hamza before we dive into the content discussion.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. As we speak about and interrogate the religious contribution to violence in East Africa, I know that this conference today is going to undoubtedly look into all forms of violence that is happening, especially in Kenya and around the Horn of Africa. Be it the domestic violence that we have seen, it's on the rise currently in Kenya because, as expectedly, because of COVID, where families spent a long time together because of the pressure and the tensions that built. We've seen a number of domestic violence rising, especially gender-based violence that was happening. I know also we will be interrogating also the violence that are religiously motivated. Perhaps here we are looking at Somalia and also the northern part of Kenya, because we have seen times and again that we're still getting reports and indications of people being killed or abducted along the area. Be it also the ethnic mobilization that we have seen, the killings that are happening in Marsabit, parts of Kenya, that is purely ethnic, and we know that we are approaching elections, as the speaker previously said. During this time, there are a lot of mobilization towards people who are perceived to be outsiders in a given area. So this is also a kind of violence that we know the religious leaders are very much involved in it, but it's one of the areas that we need to tackle and discuss. I know that resources is part of the problem, because most, when we look at these conflicts, are happening in areas that people are either fighting for grazing land or they're fighting for water, which are a resource that we know at this time there's a long drought that is happening in northern Kenya. Perhaps this is part of the happenings in Marsabit and Laikipia. Also, the political violence, of course, that is meted due to competing interest because of the rising political temperatures in the countries towards 2022 in Kenya specifically. Also, Uganda, we've seen during the last elections that happened last year, the same mobilization of youth along party lines, and also trying to outdo one another in the competing interest. Finally, I hope also that we are going to look into the other form of violence that is happening by the system. This is kind of, we know that the police have the monopoly of violence, but at the same time also currently there are happenings that are worrying, because we are seeing extrajudicial killings, we are seeing forced disappearances, and we also seeing people who disappear and never to be traced again. And all this, the last time we were informed, they were in the hands of the police. So all these forms of violence, and which religious contribution will be and is very important. The religious leaders, the religious community have worked tirelessly. We know the churches, we know the mosques have been refuge. People have sought refuge in mosques, in churches, and the burden has always been with the religious leaders. So I hope that the discussions that we're going to have today and tomorrow will be meaningful, and we'll also learn from each other and areas that we can improve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh Abu Hamza. And also for highlighting the importance of different forms of, or the importance of religious leaders as mediators to tackle different forms of violence, particularly also gender-based violence. So now I would like to dive deeper into our first subtopic, which will be the conflict and peace factors in East Africa and the Horn. And therefore, I would like to introduce our moderator for this morning session, which will be retired General Bashir Haji, who is the PhD researcher at Tangaza University College at the Institute for Social Transformation. He is an expert in security and sustainable peace in the Horn of Africa, and he worked for the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. So welcome, Bashir Al-Haji, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be moderating this session this morning. We are handling a very interesting topic, which is also very topical, with the backgrounds already mentioned by those who spoke before me, namely conflict in East Africa and the role of religion in peace and conflict itself. As you're aware, currently in Somalia, we have the Al-Shabaab still battling the authorities in that country, supported by AMISOM and other forces. In the Sudan, we're having differences between extremism and moderates. And further afield in Egypt, we of course noticed what happened during the time of the Brotherhood and the follow-on conflict. Religion is perceived as a source of conflict, definitely, but also it has another side to it, which is to resolve the same conflict. It is these issues that we want to bring out today. And our panel on that subject are Dr. Reginald Modlin Nalugala. Good morning, Dr. Reginald. Unmute yourself, please. Good morning, Dr. Reginald.
Good morning, General, and everybody on the panel. Good morning.
Yeah, we're fine, thank you. And Stephen Njuguna, who is still trying to connect with us and will be available to us as soon as he is successful in that endeavor. It is now my pleasure to invite Dr. Reginald Modlin Nalugala, who is a postgraduate tutor at Tangaza University College. Dr. Nalugala teaches PhD and Masters in Social Transformation. These are the key courses in this program are governance principles, politics, and democracy in Africa, anti-radicalization measures and leadership. Skills and expertise are expressed in critiquing the development discourse in Africa and coordinating research on virus outbreak data network research or VODAN Africa. His expertise was further recognized as a delegate during the 2019 United Nations General Assembly in New York, and was one of the organizers of the Global Fratelli Tutti Conference in August of this year. It is now my pleasure to request Dr. Nalugala to make his presentation. Dr. Nalugala.
Thank you very much, General Bashir, and the panelists and the organizers of this conference for this timely topic. So the discussion here today is on violence in East Africa and on religion's contribution to this building. So to be able to help us reflect better on this topic, I'm going to focus more on conflict and peace factors in East Africa and the Horn. And the three areas I really want to discuss now are the causes of conflict, possible peace factors, and mitigation factors. as a scholar and somebody who is researching on this particular topic, I'm very keen to know the ongoing conflicts in this particular area. So I just highlighted a few that are ongoing, and some of them have been agreed upon. For example, in Isiolo, in Kenya, friction between the Dagodia Somali immigrants and the Borana hosts. The Samburu Pokot Turkana conflict, the Battle of Lokokor, 1996, that brought a peace agreement. The Karamoja cluster, Uganda bordering Kenya, Sudan, and Ethiopia. The Turkana, Dasanech, and all the other groups around the Nyanga Tom, who are always clashing around Ilemi Triangle. A cross-border conflicts between the Somali, Borana, Tana River region of Kenya, Boni Forest area, in Ethiopia, between the Ethiopia-Djibouti border agreements, for example, the Hill as a Ila region, because of the communities living in Asa and Afa, struggle across the international borders. So what is key for us to do is to understand why conflict. Every human person is prone to conflict. There'll be conflict of needs, interests, resources, positions, power, mitigation. And these are normal human phenomena that cause us to conflict. I would easily conflict on somebody over the food I need to eat, over the transport I should take, what kind of phone I should buy, what kind of furniture I should have in the house. So these are the inner motivating factors that contribute to conflict. So for this particular study, what we're trying to do is some of the drivers. For example, if we understand the causes of conflict, what I just said, interests, resources, positions, power, is differing aims and methods, competing or disparaging goals, differences in philosophies, and philosophies could come as ideologies. Personality conflict, I could be a leader, but then I have issues on how to handle people of different gender, can cause conflict. Then there are also theories that help us to address this issue. Structural theory conflict, Marxist theory, international capitalist theory, realist theory, biological theory, and psychological theory of conflict. I'll be dwelling more on structural and psychological conflicts. And so when we are approaching this kind of discussion, we need to be very clear that in psychological approach, there is always this hero culture. Who is a hero? Who is a hero among the people? And in 2012, while organizing a conference in Lodwar, the diocese was marking 50 years. So as Tangaza, we were part of the organizers. And we went through why there's always conflict among pastoralists. And there are very many other factors, but the key one was the hero factor, to honor and praise a Moran when they have come from a raid. And what surprised me more was that
Reginald, I'm sorry. I think the participant can't see the slides clearly. Can you just put them into the presenters mode, maybe? Maybe then it's better.
Okay, let me see that. Okay.
Share screen.
Sorry about that. Let me see.
Yes.
Is that better?
Maybe we just need to wait 5 seconds. So I think we can see it clearly. So then you can just click to the slides. Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Thank you. So I just say that my discussion is going to look at conflict and peace factors in East Africa, looking at conflict causes, possible peace factors, and mitigation factors. And what I shared earlier was that some of the ongoing conflicts and agreements that have been in place, and people try to work towards honoring those agreements. Example is Isiolo district, the Dagodia Somali immigrants and the Borana. That's a very recent and ongoing question, the Samburu Pokot Turkana, especially on looking at the Battle of Kokor, 1996, the Karamoja cluster bordering Kenya, Sudan, Ethiopia, the Turkana, Dasanech, and all the other groups around Nyangatom and over the Lemi Triangle. Across border conflict, we know the Somali Borana, the Tana River Basin in Kenya, the Boni Forest area, the Ethiopia-Djibouti border agreement between the Dahil Asa Ila region because of the communities that use the region and straddle across the international border. Then I just mentioned that for us to understand the conflict, we need also to go to the causes. And in my research, I find that a conflict is driven by needs, interests, resources, positions, power, and then we always look for international community for mitigating processes. And the needs, it's very difficult to know when somebody is in power, whether they are fighting for themselves or for the community. And so the needs of the community and personal interest will always clash. And it's very easy to push everybody into this domain of thinking. And so my discussion is going to look more on that and then help us also to circumvent the causes. So why conflict occurs? It's driven by needs and interests. So there are 4 causes that we know of, and most of these are differing aims and methods, as I said, competing and disparaging goals. Sometimes you don't know whether personal or community oriented. Differences in philosophies, which can come also from religion, culture, and sometimes we can hide in religion while it's cultural, or cultural when it's religious, or sometimes different cultures where we come from. Personalities are very interesting. I can be a leader in the community, but have very huge vested interests. So I'm pushing everybody to follow my way because of the big man syndrome in the community. And then there's conflict theory that you need to be aware of, structural, Marxist, international capitalist theory, realist theory, biological theory, psychological theory. For me, I dwell more on structural and psychological. So when we come to psychological approach to conflict, it's always this hero culture, the warrior, the hero of the community, the one who is really honored. And this is very common in our African culture. The person who seems to show leadership is one who is given positions of power or given authority. These are the people who command. If you go among the warriors, the one who is the best hunter, the best in the arrow, the one who is good with the spear, that always becomes the leader. So everybody is fighting to be like that hero. So the warrior culture can influence conflict. Then we know sociological approach where individual differences. Sometimes we don't know who is fighting for who. Is it myself or the needs of the community? Is it my interest or the flash interest? Then the whole issue of social change. So when we come now to the resource-driven conflict, which I call structural conflict, these are bases that attempt to explain competing interests within the community. Because sometimes we have oil or we have minerals in the community, we say it's communal, but then on the other hand, is the people who are at the top that are going to own this particular mineral or resource. And so it can cause unnecessary conflict among the people because we do not know who is really going to control this. However, the traditional structure is that we are communal and everything must be shared in common. So the structural conflicts are driven by resources. And so within the structural theory, we are looking at conditions that push people to fight over resources. And in modern times, we're also using a terminology called extractive industry. Extractive industry is where community has oil but doesn't own it. Then we go back to the constitutions of the land. Some constitutions say that anything below 5 meters doesn't belong to you. So if you have gold, diamonds, other minerals below your land is not yours, it's owned by the government. But then who is going really to make sure that the community benefits? These are some of the causes of this kind of conflict. I put there a few references of people who have done this kind of studies. Then the whole issue of positions and conflict. The other day I was looking at Joe Biden in conflict about how different positions can influence how you make policies of a land or a country. The Republicans and the Democrats, all of them holding their own positions on how to share the resources that are coming out of the country. The new bill that is coming up on infrastructure. Everybody has interest, even within the Democratic Party, which we think that would support the president. And this is a common phenomena within our own countries, that we are negotiating to gain out of the suffering of people who is going to get which position. And once they're given those positions, what is going to happen? So when we're looking at the positions conflict, then we're looking at tasks conflict, relationship conflict, and value conflict. Although open to communication, collaboration, and respect will go a long way toward conflict management. The three types of conflict can also benefit from targeted conflict resolutions. Positions are located in the realm of communication and interaction. I can position myself to be at the top of the helm by the way I communicate. I can also position my community by the way I communicate. I can also position my country by the way I communicate. So positions can be a cause of serious conflict in the community. Then the power issue, power conflict, explains patterns of behavior in major world rivalries. So within the power, we have competing political parties. And whenever we have elections in Africa, the tragedy of political parties, are they tribal or national? And if they're tribal, then you see within the tribe, which is the larger clan. And if this larger clan takes power, then they're not easily, they're not able to share resources with the other communities. And so they control the communities, and that can be a very serious cause of conflict. The opposite side of conflict now is the mitigating strategies. And I use the term distributive bargaining, because this is where, if you have a circle, and especially in the African culture, the concept of the circle is so important. The circle is preserved for God, and everybody is part of the circle. If you're a member of the circle, there's no power, there's no position, there are no interests, there are no needs. All of us are equal. Why? Because we are working for the center. And so in a negotiation, we use that model. What we negotiate is what we put in the center. My interest may not be the interest of General Bashir, but may not be the interest of Jane Mwangi or Kamau or Gola or the Sire. But when we negotiate, we are putting something in the center. So what are we putting in the center? So in the distributive bargaining is where we create a competitive bargaining strategy in which one party gains only if the other party gains something or loses something. So I must lose something in order for the others to gain. I must gain something for the others to gain. So that model has to be very well negotiated. So a negotiation strategy to distribute fixed resources such as money, resources, assets among or between parties involved is very, very important. So peace negotiation strategies among parties require also to understand structural causes, systemic causes, climate change triggered causes, and then the psychological, because sometimes when I'm fighting for distributive bargaining power, I'm also looking for my own hidden interests. So I need to be aware of that. And so some of the reconciliation means we are aware of intrinsic and potentially productive role of nonviolent conflict, which is a very important factor, especially when we look at relational transformation within the spirit of Ubuntu. We exist for each other, all for all must share whatever is little, even whatever little it is. when you go to our communities, when a person slaughters a cow, you find that everybody gets a piece. So if we carry that kind of value to national politics, what is it that we are sharing with the community? Now, the danger of that is that if I become a cabinet minister within a particular structure, I might want only to share that little bit with all members of my community, but not other communities. And so we must be aware of this, that it can create conflict. But then in reconciliation, we must also know where are we coming from. So reconciliation is a long-term endeavor. Reconciliation must be seen as a far more difficult and long-term endeavor. It's not something you just say we have reached a reconciliation. It's a long-term. Addressing this relational transformation taking place in the community, and then requires an innovative political institutions capable of keeping open spaces for democratic and political contestation. So innovative political institutions are not always available. Sometimes the church takes that role or religious groups take that role, but it's very complex. Then there's a complexity theory as a solution to conflict. The complexity theory offers a theoretical framework for analyzing how social systems prevent, manage, and recover from violent conflict. And so what they talk about is the recent studies are talking about adaptive peace operations, navigating this complexity of influencing societal change without causing harm. Now, this is also a bit of a challenge to international peacekeepers, especially if they come from outside the culture. But then within the culture, whom are you going to pick to deal with this complexity of peace building and community integration? So peacekeepers also need local persons who can play that role. But then the danger is that when the peacekeepers go, then what happened to this peace negotiator like we saw in Afghanistan when the Americans and the national forces are pulling out? The people there who are the negotiators and who are navigating this complexity, the complex part of reconciliation, were left behind and were fearful for their lives. So how do we protect them? So some of the, and this is my last part, some of the ongoing agreements that seem to work very well. For example, Moikana-Dokana Accord, the Borana and the neighbors, how they're working together. The Moikona-Dokana peace process, because of the cross-border linkages that were restored after a long period of conflict. The Borana livestock from Dilo and surrounding Kebele community of Secession began traveling long distances, sometimes as far as Kuri Hills inside Kenya, to access grazing areas following rain. So because of that created conflict, but then the outcome was Moikona-Dokana Accord. But then we also know that whenever there are climatic changes, they can also cause conflict. But then how do you bring communities to share the little resource, even sometimes traveling 600-700 kilometers away from their own domain? And then a very famous one is ongoing between Ethiopia-Djibouti Boat Agreement, the Dakhil-Asa, as I mentioned earlier, that the two communities can share the resources within their locality. And so these are some of the books I was looking at and some of the material that can be available. So thank you very much. I hope I've helped to stimulate discussion on process of conflict and how to look at mitigating factors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reginald, for that elaborate discussion and presentation on the subject that we are tackling today, which is conflict, or rather the role of religion in conflict and its resolution. And we have covered that very exhaustively, and you have put on the table very reasonable and topical issues that are prevalent in the conflict that we experience in this region. Of course, we have had our own mechanisms also to deal with these conflicts, And religion has been one part of that mechanism. In other areas, it is known as traditional peace mechanisms. And they have worked effectively, but they can be complemented, of course, with modern and postmodern approaches to conflict resolution. It is now my pleasure to open the floor for the question and answer session.
So Steve.
Is it there?
Yeah, he's there.
Steve is here now? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Steve, welcome. Welcome. I had not noticed you had joined us. My apologies. And I would like to welcome Stephen Njuguna. He's a German-Kenyan scholar and practitioner in the field of peace and conflict. Steve's area of specialization is on peace building, conflict resolution, transitional justice, and the nexus of development cooperation and peace, especially in the sub-Saharan region of Africa. Steve holds a bachelor degree in political science and a master's in peace and conflict studies from the University of Marburg. He recently finished his PhD at the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies in the same university, where he wrote his thesis on trajectories of change, the transformation of SPLM from a liberation movement to a government in South Sudan. Steve is currently working for Coast Interfaith Council of Clerics Trust under the Civil Peace Service, a peace program funded by the German government. Welcome, Steve, and please make your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me just share my presentation. I hope you can see it, right?
You will make it a slideshow.
Let me see. Hope now you can see it, right? Hope everybody can see it.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me for this seminar today, or webinar on religion, the contribution of religion to conflict and to peace. And what I thought about is like how also religion can also be politicized, that it can even enter, even splitting out the countries. And then what I thought about is like about the South Sudan secession, the secession of South Sudan, and how also religion played a big role in also legitimizing the secession claims for South Sudan. And the structure of this paper, we'll just go briefly and talk about what is self-determination and secession, and also give a brief contextual background of the case of South Sudan, also Sudan in general. However, this part, because South Sudan is a big, it has a long history, so I'll just skip some of them, but in case of question and answer session, I might go into it deeper. And then also I'll go to the internal and external factors of secession, also bearing in mind that religion played a big role, how it also helped South Sudan to secede. And also, and then also I will also try to talk about the contribution, religion's contribution to conflict and peace building in South Sudan, and we'll follow up with questions and discussions. So as you know, actually the case of South Sudan is, or Africa in general, you know that the borders are actually sacro cont, that means they cannot be changed. But as we see on the OAU resolution of 1964, it said that considering that borders constitute a grave and a permanent factor of dissension, considering further that borders of African states on the day of independence constitute a tangible reality, the borders existing on the achievement. And this actually is one of the cases that went against, South Sudan is one of the countries that went against the same thing, but also this one, in this part, they invoked religion as part of it. And also on talking of that one, what is actually secession? And secession, it has so many different kind of meanings. It can also mean like a political withdrawal of a territory from an existing state. And also, And this territorial change occurs once an independent state of a self-governing territory separates from us, an independent country. And also this also is enhanced through international legitimacy. That means that a country is, tends to be also recognized by other international countries. And also there are, for the part of secession, actually it depends, it has so many factors that also can be played around. And things can be used, like can be ethnicity, religion, and cultural questions that can be evoked to call for secession. And also other things can be marginalization, there may be oppression or the threat of extermination. And actually in such a scenario, if one of these aspects are being invoked, then our group may opt for secession. However, secession is not actually straightforward, but it actually relies on these different factors which can be interconnected to favor for the secession. And also on talking about the same secession thing, for a country to be considered to be able to secede from any country, from any parent country, it has to have a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and also be in a position to enter into foreign relations with a state. And this actually outlaid in the Montevideo Convention of 1933. And there are also different kind of classification of secessions. There are also categories of factors, other factors that can also that play around. And one is like the social, this is the explanatory factor that involves social, political, and economic factors. And there are also there's normative, which also normally connects with the moral and ethical justification of a phenomenon. Like what we are going to see in South Sudan, you'll see like it was mostly the secession movement, the secession of South Sudan. It used an ethical justification through religion, and also there's also other part that is rational or legal, and there's the rights of people to self-determination, and these are usually like the constitutional laws. There are also two different kind of things. They can be either people's human rights laws, or the legal term that is people human rights laws, which are actually outlaid in the UN Charter. And also there is also the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is also a broader set of aspects that include the right of individuals, communities, or nations to rally for autonomy, independence, and union. So we can see, like, for example, self-determination does not mean separation, but it can also lead to autonomy, independence, or even joining the country joining another state, like what, for example, happened sometimes in the West. If you see, like, the West and the German conflict, where the East and West, they decided to join. So yeah. So these are not, I've just talked about them. So I'll just there are also other factors of two different factors of self-determination. One is what we call normally internal self-determination or autonomy. And this is whereby people freely are allowed to conduct their own political and economic, social activities within their territories, but they are still within a same country. However, they don't have the internal relationship and administration remain the same in the state, and there's no change in external relations. That means the country, even if they are also they're autonomous, they cannot enter into foreign relations with other countries. And also the other part is the external self-determination, and this is like what happened maybe in Eritrea and now South Sudan, whereby a country can separate itself from its parent country and create a new independent country. So if you look at the case of Sudan, so the South Sudan also actually capitalized on so many things, and from the beginning there was the Turco-Egyptian regime, which actually was invading the South Sudan and slavery. And also all these regimes up to the time of independence were mostly so much exploitative and against the southern communities. And South Sudan also with religion, which was actually, or Sudan on itself, it was actually separated into two. The north was put to be Arab, an Arab entity, and an Arab Muslim entity, to say that. And the southern was just like Black Christian entity. And now, and here is also, even the country itself, it was so pacified, that means there was no movement from north to south, but it's actually based on religion, race, and ethnicity. Let me just go fast. This is, and also like what happened, that's fostered actually the conflict in South Sudan mostly, apart from these other issues which I've talked on them, like the northern domination, internal colonization, and the refusal of having like a bi-federal constitution, whereby, like what I said before, a form of internal autonomy. So where the South could govern themselves and the North could govern themselves. That was actually what what was the government by then refused to do that. And then there are also other issues of Arabization and Islamization that was which has been put there so much in the context, South Sudan's context. And actually this also leading to a war in South Sudan. And if you remember very well, the government there by then had put Sharia law to the whole country, even if they were saying like the South Sudan, the Southern Sudan, Northern Sudan, they're one country, but the country was put under Sharia law. And these are some of the things that even actually made the evolution of Sudan's people liberation movement. And we can see even under this kind of setup, also religion also became internationalized in some aspect, whereby you'll find some countries in the like Uganda, Congo, Kenya, and Ethiopia actually were actually supporting South Sudan because they were seeing them as Christians. Whereas when you look at the northern part of South Sudan, it was actually put more like an Arab entity, which was actually supported by other countries like Libya, Egypt, and the Middle some countries of the Middle East. So, but this the war independence was actually so much streamlined by the international community, especially the USA, whereby they came and politicized religion to say where actually despite there was so many conflicts in South Sudan, the conflict in South Sudan was actually, or in the wider Sudan, was presented like Arabs killing Africans or Muslims killing Christians. And actually in 2002, through international pressure, actually the SPLM did not win the war. And it was through negotiation that it was able to come to the drafting of the Machakos Protocol in 2002 that paved the way for the framework of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that was signed in 2005 in Nairobi, Kenya. And this Comprehensive Peace Agreement granted South Sudan an option for independence for a referendum after a period of 6 years. But as you know, in January, the majority of Southerners, that is 98%, voted for referendum, positive for referendum and for secession, and then that led to the independence of South Sudan. So, like what I was saying about the ideology itself, ideology is also can be also very conflicting in different kind of times. And this one can also be used even a religious ideology, it can be a political ideology, which is also sometimes that can be intertwined with other negative issues like political deprivation, social and economic marginalization, inequality. And like for South Sudan, they use the word, mostly religion itself, because religion is actually cutting across the whole South Sudan. Despite, like for example, you know, in South Sudan there are so many so many religious, ethnic groups, and even if they are also being shown that they are Christians, actually, indeed, most of them, they believe in the traditional African beliefs. So this is what I was saying, like for SPLM, it also used this kind of shared experience, what I call social habitus, to emphasize on the normative political principle and practices which they were undergoing by that time due to marginalization and discrimination from the northern government, so that to be able to come up with their own country. And also we can see also religion also, it was also a very vital role when you look also in the South Sudan itself, whereby, so religion was also a very a very vital aspect in South Sudan. For example, you see, like for example, the SPLM itself had its own spiritual wing, and then through also this kind of religion, the church, they also providing social welfare relief and educating the refugees. And this, however, they also that's why we also come to the fear in the political part, whereby the SPLM was also feeling that it's losing its legitimacy because the church itself was presenting itself as a legitimate spokesman of the Southern people. So that's why you see also there were also within the movement, even if it has been held by politically by the church, it turned against also the religious leaders. And this, like what I said, like identity, a religious identity was actually the one that used the movement used in South Sudan to wage this war against the northern. So whereby they were presenting themselves as the Africans, Christians, Africans who are being attacked by the Islam or Arabs from the north. And when we look at here also how from the international perspective, how did we also South Sudan manage to garner legitimacy? For one, there also assertion that attempted murder of Hosni Mubarak by the Islamic fundamentalism, and which also was actually perceived as being posing a danger to the whole of Eastern African region. And also, like you see, even this war actually, it even ascended even to our country, Kenya, whereby also the same issue of Islamic claims of Islamic fundamentalism were also even moved to assert that even the National Islamic Front government was also pushing for jihad in Eritrea, Kenya, and you saw even here in Kenya itself, the Islamic Party of Kenya, which has actually became banned, it was also being moved into sort of a conflict through religion, even though the conflict was not coming from Kenya itself. And here I said, like also the movement, in the liberation war, the religion was one of the fundamental force that was used in this conflict, yeah, in rallying international community against Sudan's Islamic fundamentalism. that was threatening and promoting stability not only to Africa but globally. And that's why you see, even because of this, putting this issue of the religion, like Arabs attacking Christians, we find that even this war, it also brought some other allies who are fighting for South Sudan, like there's Eritrea, Uganda, Democratic of Congo, which also tried to bring the the Sudan's regime out of power. Yeah, and also if you look at the globally, also you'll see that even this war was actually propagated in the US, actually in the USA, through religious pressure groups in the USA, mainly the rights group, which were mostly evangelical Republicans, together with a Black Caucus group, which was comprising of Afro-Americans. So even in this perspective, you can see how religion itself, that is Christian, through this kind of narrative that Christians are being attacked by Muslims, how also the Bush administration was able to pressure South Sudan to sign a peace agreement, and also rally for secession, and other things which might also be part of it. Is also this the problem with the regime, the support, like as Khartoum's Islamic regime supporting the Gulf War, and also harboring of terrorist groups, individuals like Carlos the Jackal, or even Osama bin Laden. And also the same way, you can see how even religion became so much instrumentalized or politicized, especially if you hear also here by Kenya and Tanzania when the 1998 bombings. It was said that Sudan played a big role on that one, because it's also promoting Islamic fundamentalism and also jihad. And the retaliation was even bombing of the Al-Shifa factory in Sudan. However, even this, the factory itself didn't have anything to do with any manufacturing of chemical weapons or the bomb materials. So, and also we can see also even coming up with the September 9 attacks. This also is the impetus of the conflict grew on, and whereby South Sudan was promised, or maybe just is going to get their debts being uplifted and also be deleted from the list of terrorism, only if it allowed South Sudan to secede. And that's how we can see here. This is another, despite there's so many factors that also came into play, that religion was one of the contributing factors that was manipulated to bring South Sudan into to gain its independence. And like what I said before, there is like this, the US group, how they legitimize the SPLM struggle through the stereotypes of using religion, like presenting Sudan's conflict as Arab killing Muslim, and Arab killing blacks, and Muslim killings Christians. And also this kind of issue of anti-slavery groups that came into there, which were also mostly publicized in the US media, where they presented South Sudan on only one side as a Black Christian being oppressed by an Arab entity in the north. And actually, you see, even if this religion was, or the matter of Christianity was brought there so much, you'll see actually in South Sudan itself, the Southerners practice traditional beliefs. And besides most of the Southerners were Muslim, and also like especially the upper part of Nuban. Yeah. And also, I'll just come, because of time, I'll just come to some reflection.
Steve, can I draw your attention to time, please?
Yes, please. I'm just winding up.
Maybe 3 minutes.
Yes, please. Thank you. And like we see also, the religion or the church also can play a big role also in mediating conflict. We see like in the South peace dialogue between South Sudan labors, which were actually done by the church. And this kind of neutrality of religious leaders, especially during the conflict war, was able to build sustainable peace in South Sudan. But unfortunately now, the country has gone back into conflict. And yeah, this was because of time. I'll not be able to go into more details, but actually I'm also going to send this PowerPoint to you. Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much. So it's like here I was trying to put like how religion can be politicized to even go against the rational legal law of even saying that a country is not allowed secession. Thank you. General Bashir, I think you're muted.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that elaborate and educative presentation on South Sudan in relation to religion and conflict. Probably the question that one will ask there is South Sudan really a majority Christian country? I've served there. I've served in South Sudan for a little less than a year. And what I know is that the population ratio is 16% Christian, 17% Muslim, and the remainder is Muslim, not Christian. I don't like calling them animists. I think
yeah.
For me.
Okay, sorry.
For me, that is not acceptable. But
sorry. Yeah, actually, in South Sudan, actually, the most of the religion is African traditional religions, which are there.
Yes, I would rather say that.
Yes.
Yeah, I would rather use that term of African traditional religions than animists. But there is an assortment of beliefs there.
Yes, exactly.
Whichever you want to group them. So thank you very much. I personally enjoyed the presentation and particularly the internationalization of the conflict. Maybe in future, I would like to also draw your attention to the birth of the Darfur conflict.
Exactly.
Which was born out of the South Sudan conflict.
Exactly.
So and subsequently the continuation of the conflict in South Sudan itself between the regions. The regions have continued with the same ideology to try to secede themselves. Fighting to this day. So thank you very much. May I now open the there are a few questions that have been put up here. We have from Elizabeth Okpala. Thank you for the presentations. My question goes to all the presenters. How can this body practically set a dialogue that will bring the parties involved in war to have a peaceful talk? Maybe if you could answer that question first, please. Any of you can answer that, either you or Dr. Malgal.
Yeah, thank you, General Bashir. I think what the question is directed to this body, meaning us, TACSPA, I think, TACSPA, the organizer of this conference. So what I would say is that through our research teams, the students who are doing research are conducting studies that can help bring the different groups together, whether it's in Somalia, whether it's in Sudan, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Eritrea, what is happening now in the situation happening now. So through different types of research can bring the warring groups together. That's what I would say. Stephen?
Yes, also adding on that one, what the doctor has already said, like religion also can also be able to foster for peaceful coexistence. And this one can also be attained only when there's also a form of interreligious dialogue, whereby faiths from different denominations can come together and share the experiences. And through this way, stereotyping, those things can go away very fast, and also fostering peaceful coexistence. Thank you.
Yes, and that is very important, isn't it? Because everybody has his own beliefs, and sometimes the fighters are motivated by religious slogans and symbolism. There is also symbolism which shows nationalism, and therefore religion is a main source of conflict at times, or rather precipitates more and more conflict. But again, I think the strength of religion actually in finding a peaceful solution to the conflict. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is where it has been more successful than in the negative perspective. The other question from Rita is, how do we differentiate between faith-based organizations acting and speaking for the people and co-option by the political elite? How do we differentiate between faith-based organizations acting and speaking for the people and co-option by political elite? I think this is in relation to Stephen's mentioning of the National Council for the Sudanese Council for Religion vis-a-vis SPLM.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe in Ethiopia, Eritrea, where the state recognizes the Coptic Church more than other religions.
So actually, I'll go on that one. Like faith-based organization is normally to know if they're actually being co-opted by the political allies. You have to look at what are they preaching. Is it a message of peace, or vis-a-vis what is happening at the ground? So if you find like actually there can be some might be partisan, but there are also people who are like non-partial. They don't take sides. So from that aspect, you can be able to really know who is actually pushing on the agenda of the political allies. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps also to underline the fact that, you know, faith-based groups are created by persons who belong to a particular faith. And these persons can be triggered by fighting for the greater good of society by joining a political party. So they are carrying their faith within the political party. Now, the question always is that what is faith about? Faith is about promoting good values, the greater good of society. And so if it's for the greater good of everyone, then these professionals must play a role. But if they're promoting the greater good of society, it's not just about their own faith, but humanity. And this is where I think the faith-based groups tend to go wrong. Instead of serving humanity, they want to serve their own faith. For us professionals, we must be aware that I can belong to a faith, but my goal is to promote humanity, that all of us are one, and one we are together. Thank you.
From who is asking the question? From Nobat. Yeah, Yarshik. Thanks so much for the presentations. My question is, what is the role of policy in conflict management? I think this is governmental policy versus religious policy by the interfaith organization.
Yes, I think a very quick one is that within the Vatican, they have a body that's looking at refugees, migration. There's also the dicastery for integral human development. So there are different bodies looking at many issues. And in the Horn of Africa, particularly, there's a very strong body on migration and refugees. And even the cardinal who is in charge used to work at Tangaza, and we know him. And the team are working with us in the background. What is important is that what's the role of any religious body? Is it to promote peace, bring out the value of humanity, and bring communities together, or is to disparage and scatter the flock. So the goal should always be to bring communities together, irrespective of their faith, irrespective of their background, irrespective of race or creed. And that's what the Holy See does. Thank you.
Stephen, any contribution?
Actually, I think Dr. has actually summed all of that. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question, as I mentioned, from Hudayk. He's quoting me. South Sudan, in fact, I'm saying of religion or religions. However, the SPLA cause was defined as modern crusade. Therefore, could you please highlight the role of natural resources in gaining the support of the other international actors?
Oh, thank you very much, Hudayk, for asking that question. And actually, like for South Sudan, it could not have actually seceded if they actually seceded because they had the natural resources in themselves. Actually, the oil was discovered in 1979 in the southern part of South Sudan. And also this was part of that they got the legitimacy from the international community, especially the Troika countries. They used to be Norway, United States, and Italy, that pushed for them, because actually this was a kind of a war of, also for resource, if despite that was being used, despite being religion being used to fight the war, because these people, they knew that they want to cut it out so that from the resource they can be able to benefit from themselves. And actually you can see even right now in South Sudan, the conflict still going on, and it's also because of the oil resource. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, in Ethiopia, we have Ethiopian Orthodox Church, but the Coptic Church ideology is coming from Egypt to influence the region with their geopolitical ideology, which needs, of course, a research itself. I think that's a comment from Andras Macharo. Well, I think he's speaking for all of us. In Kenya, for example, we have the Anglican Church, which is very British. We have the Methodists, we have various, we have the Catholics, we have Muslims, also different differing schools of thought, and each one has its own influence from inside and outside the country. So it's not unique to Ethiopia. Any comments on that?
What I wanted just to add on is, first of all, is to understand the creation of an ideology. For this is usually a discussion that never comes up. We mention, but we never dismantle it to understand what's the cause of an ideology. You see, we can create an ideology from our culture, from our political background, from the different interests that are espoused within our communities. Then religion also plays a very important role in defining that ideology. And then what is very important is the ontology and epistemology of each community. So what is there for me? So I can borrow something from my religion. What is there for us? I can borrow something from my own culture. What is there for us is from the political elite driving the process. So when you put all that together in a pot, it becomes a very dangerous soup that can cause a lot of stomach ulcers and all that, because the ideology is the driving philosophy behind any political group. So you could belong to an Orthodox church, but you have an ideology of a fundamentalist group. You could belong to the Catholic church, but you belong to an ideology of a dissident group. So we have to be very careful to link too much ideology with a particular faith or particular church or particular religious group. But individual groups, especially established political parties, may acquire ideology based on what they believe in, captured from different perspectives. So we need to be very clear every time we talk about an ideology. And very lastly, one of the key scholars that dismantled the whole idea of ideology is Henry Tajfel. Henry Tajfel, he died in 1992. He's famous as the psychologist of post-World War II. Why? Because he studied the Nazi ideology. What was this Nazi ideology? It's all these configurations together that push very many people to extinction push many people who are very professional to look like they have never gone to school, killing their own brothers and sisters. So we have to be very careful when we handle ideology. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much. And also ideology, like we remember, like what Karl Marx said, religion can be also the opium of the masses. So especially when it's actually interlinked with the political aspirations. So it's also very important to try to separate the two issues, either political or religion. And also secondly, most of the religion actually, they also agitate for peaceful coexistence, most of them actually. But you just find that this kind of social habitus, like the upbringing of someone, can also try to twist an religious teaching to an ideology, and then also try to bring the conflict in between. So it's also very, very important to try to separate those two things, because like I said, yeah, sorry.
Yes. No, just go finish first, because I wanted to say something more.
Yeah, because I say like most of the religion actually go rally for peace. Yeah, then you can go.
Yeah. Now, just again, we have to be very careful when we say that Karl Marx said religion is opium of the masses.
No, no,
it's okay. You are saying the right thing. Is that the political elite can use religion to their own satisfaction.
Exactly.
They can reconstruct society to quote the Bible, quote the Quran, quote the holy books, but they reconstruct their own society where they become the ruling class and they can oppress the masses. For example, they'll tell you, my brother and sister, when you suffer now, you will go to heaven. Blessed are those who suffer, they're indoctrinating you. And then in the end, you're not fighting, you're helpless. The sense of social justice disappears. So you say, if I'm praying and I'm suffering, then like Christians, you say, oh, Jesus suffered, so if I suffer, it's okay. No, I think that's what we mean by when Karl Marx says opium of the masses, that they can be indoctrinated to think that whatever is happening is normal. It's just normal, but it's not normal. We need to dismantle that. And this is the one area we need to interact with.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The conversation involves us also.
Yes.
And we have yet another question. In regard to conflict within the East African region, can we consider social media as a mitigating strategy? In regard to conflict within the East African region, can we consider social media as a mitigating strategy?
Actually, right now, as we are looking at the moment, we have actually moved on to a new technological era, and social media can also has two sides of the coin. Actually, it can also be able to mitigate conflicts, and but also at the same time, we can see it also being used can be used to use propaganda and also hate speech and also bringing people together. So the other thing is, can be social media in itself is like a edged sword. Either it can also bring, when it's very, very used properly, it can also be used for peace building activities of promoting peaceful coexistence. But on the other bad side, or the negative side, it can also be used to flare up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, this is a very important point, especially within the Catholic Church. There's a very famous document called Inter Mirifica, document that says you can use the press, radio, TV, movies to evangelize or to speak to people. But at the same time, they're worried of people who can manipulate this to their own advantage. So the social media can be manipulated to create war, create conflict, and cause chaos within society. So we have to be very careful how we apply this in normal life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a few minutes left. I would like to give 5 minutes to our other panelists. If they have one or two comments, please.
Yeah, General Bashir, 2 minutes, you said?
I say thank you very much for your presentations and responses. It appears that we have exhausted our questions, but if our other panelists like Sheikh Ali, Abu Hamza, Rita, if they have any comments or observations, I would like to offer them this space. Can they hear us, Rita?
I think, General Bashir, I think there's no, but Yashike has a question.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I have no comment at this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. Sheikh Abu Hamza. Not there. And Sheikh Ali? Okay, since there are no questions, I would like to conclude the session by thanking our presenters and all our participants and all those who tuned in today for their participation and for being able, for making this discussion, this conference, or rather this sub-theme, the success that it has registered. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. So just from the IRDU side, I would like to encourage you also to participate in a small survey of this session. So we can also learn from your feedback. So also this is quite fruitful for us. So, and then, I would also like to use this opportunity to thank General Bashir for the good moderation. And the next today will be about dimensions of gender and religious minority and conflicts and peace building. So the session will start at 2 p.m. And we are looking forward to see you there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.